Okay, so maybe just a quick recap for the minute that I was muted. The gentleman on my left-hand side, his name is Vaughan After. He's the head of the customer service department within Altron FinTech, which is basically the NewPay and Delta side. For the people that's not familiar with this pretty face, my name is Stefan Burger. I'm a regional manager within the Altron FinTech space. So the topic for discussion today on the webinar, it's multi-acquiring on DebiCheck. So once again, thank you. And yeah, hopefully the webinar would be a positive contribute and attribute for your business and what NewPay, Altron FinTech is actually doing right now in this industry. Okay, so I'm going to proceed. So enjoy. The agenda, I think the agenda, it's basically the introduction, having a bit of a look from the past, present, and future, and then what is switching, and then the actual switching process. And then once the switching has been done, obviously the merchants, they need to identify on reporting, when did a switch occur, how do I report on it, the actual setup process, and then lastly, I think the benefits and maybe a negative. But yeah, please, after that, we've got a feedback session and then a Q&A. So please, if you've got some questions, feel free to ask them. We'll try and answer them as good as possible.
Yeah, and post them in the chat for us, folks. So if you can post them into the chat for us and publish them, then we can put them in. We might not answer them immediately. We'll probably leave it until the end, but we can start to get those questions running and everything to come through to the system. Thank you.
Okay, next up, the little intro video for the DebiCheck Multi-Acquiring.
We are offering our merchants a safety net for transaction processing. Introducing Altron FinTech's revolutionary DebiCheck solution, now offering our customers multi-acquiring bank options, empowering you to take control of your transaction processing like never before. You now have a transaction processing safety net with Altron FinTech's multi-bank acquiring platform. The solution allows you to select up to 4 different banks to process your DebiCheck transactions through and choose the order of priority that suits you best. Make your first choice processor your own business bank or process where most of your customers bank. Either way, you can also select to have a second or even a third bank as your backup solution in case of emergency. If one bank system goes down, we can switch you over to your backup choice in a few minutes to keep your business processing. Don't be caught without a processing bank. Choose the only solution that switches your transactions and reports them all in one central process. With Altron FinTech's DebiCheck solution, you can rest easy knowing that every transaction is processed with the utmost security and reliability. Our advanced technology ensures that all transactions are authenticated by account holders. In addition to our cutting-edge technology, our dedicated team of experts is always on hand to provide the support and guidance you need to succeed. Whether you're looking to streamline your payment processing or improve your bottom line, Altron FinTech is here to help. Experience the power of Altron FinTech's multi-acquiring bank DebiCheck solution today and take your business to new heights. Switch to the safer side today.
Okay, so I think by having a look at the video, it might sound a bit confusing, but I can assure you that it's not a confusing process at all. Okay, I think before we move on, I think it's valuable maybe just to take a step back with regards to DebiCheck compared to the old ERO system, if I can call it that, where there was a lot of questions initially asked by industry. Why do we need, or why is there a need to actually switch over from an ERO, the old ARO-NATO system, to a new payment system within the industry? So Vaughan, I know we had multiple calls of why is it happening? We've got an ERO system that's working. And there was a specific word that came up. It was AC at this stage, authenticated collections. So I think if we just stop a bit and we think about the term authenticated collections, I think that's basically where DebiCheck got born, because within the payment system industry, I think we've seen an influx on fraud, if I can call it like that, happening on consumers' accounts where there was multiple debits uploaded and processed without the actual consumer being aware or actually acknowledging the payment instruction against the account. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, I think that could potentially be the main reason why DebiCheck was born.
Yeah, so maybe just to add to that, you know, debit order abuse, as we all know, that was the key word that was flying around in the industry. Massive investigation was launched around all of the disputes in the NATO platform specifically and how much there was going on there. And on the back of that, there was this call and this plight for getting everything authenticated transactions, and no more abuse on transactions where transactions are reversed. Personally, we do believe that it's actually consumers doing cash flow management most of the time. But but yes, we agree that consumers had to have the opportunity to actually go and authenticate their transactions.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think 1 May 2019, I think that was a big day in everybody within the payment industry with regards to the DebiCheck solution, where it's onboarded and full on going to DebiCheck. So just stopping there, having an ERO system and now as a service provider, we had to build a total new system for industry to process these AC or DebiCheck collections. So I think it was a massive change to industry, not just for NewPay as such, but the entire service providers, banks, alternative service providers, to get a DebiCheck system in place that's actually functioning, working to the way that we thought it's supposed to work. So I'm not quite sure, Vona, on the building of DebiCheck, how long did it actually take to get a system in place, a framework, and then start developing on this framework to where we are now, where we can actually say as a service provider, we can choose between multi-acquiring between different creditor banks to process transactions.
So in terms of the whole design and spec and getting everything ready and so forth, just for the initial process where the DebiCheck system was in existence, the first discussion started in 2013, 2014, thereabouts somewhere. But the actual build, once the spec and all of that was finalized and put together and so forth, was about 2018, 2019. And as you know, we started processing transactions in 2020. We were one of the first businesses to actually do so. We did so during COVID. When COVID started, we actually started processing transactions remotely by TT1 and TT2. And transactions came in that manner when you couldn't actually be in a shop with a TT3 card and PIN type of a solution available to you.
Sure. Yeah, interesting. But thanks for that. So maybe just to elaborate a bit on that, with the whole rollout phase of introducing DebiCheck in the market, NewPay, Altron FinTech, we had to jump. So I can confirm that we installed DebiCheck at more than 11,500 sites countrywide. So yeah, I think it was a mammoth and a very big task. Not just the actual installation of DebiCheck, there was additional stuff like, how do you upload transactions? What is a TT1? What is a TT2? What is TT3? So it was not just building a system, it was the actual installation, training, and understanding the system. So yeah, I think we can give ourselves a nice round of applause for that, because yeah, we are processing transactions. And the reason why I can say that is that since the inception where we went full on DebiCheck, we have seen and uploaded, I think in the roughly about more than 33 million mandate initiations on a specific acquiring bank. Now, that equates to about 83,000 transactions, million transactions, that has actually successfully been processed, reported on, and settled on. So, yeah, it was a massive task. And I think for now, how do we go better? How do we go beyond what we've got now? And I think that's the big question. And hence, this is why we've got the multi-acquiring solution that we are referring to. So maybe an interesting stat that industry might not be aware of, within DebiCheck, we have seen that our success rate on the actual transactions being successful against consumers' accounts that's been authenticated on all transactions, we're sitting at a 79, close to 80% success rate. So that includes your resubmissions. If we remove the resubmissions, then we typically see a 7 to 9% increase on the actual success rate.
What also has to be remembered is that included in that is a lot of debt collections, businesses type of thing. So this is our overall stat and number, right? So typically when you do debt collections and bad debt collections and that kind of thing, you know that your success rate is down significantly. And when we launched this platform, make no mistake, we were jittery about this thing, running at initially, I think month one was about a 69% success rate. And it started climbing. And we've been working with people, and there's been a lot of consumer education from you guys, also out to market. And that is significantly assisted in building and improving the overall system. Understanding how it works plays a massive role in that as well. So well done to you guys for also bringing your side and really working on improving those success rates and getting better customers into the process.
Yeah, thanks again. On that side note, I think maybe I just need to give a comment as well with regards to the different transaction types within DebiCheck. Now, one thing that's standing out for me, it's definitely the human interaction where consumers are making the effort to be in your shops, okay? So everybody knows within DebiCheck, we've got the TT1, real-time delay, TT2, which is basically the bulk upload of transactions, and then the TT3, which is card and PIN. So NewPay, we are really proud to say that on the TT3, which is card and PIN present, and the transactions being uploaded on a physical terminal in branch, and the transaction is authenticated by consumer entering the PIN entry, his personal identification number on the terminal, I can confirm that we have got a 99% mandate initiation success rate. Okay, so that's massive. I mean, if you think about load shedding, transport, the cost of diesel, petrol, where consumers are making the effort to be in your shops, because why? They've got the relationships. So, yeah, I think it's massive. Moving on to a TT1 real-time, unfortunately, the success rate for successful mandate initiations drops down to a 34%. But I mean, if you take that in context, we can understand why. And why? Well, what's the cell phone number that's being captured at the consumer's bank? Does it match? Does it correspond? Is there network? The cell phone banking? Are they educated enough to understand USSD, how to authenticate a mandate via SMS? All those kind of things. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a bragging right just to say card and PIN terminal, you know what, interaction, face-to-face, people, yeah, it's evidence.
And in this specific industry, I also think that it's a very relevant statement. If you were to only work in different industries like insurance and that kind of thing, your home loan, etc., that's a different story. You would probably get a lot of people authenticating transactions via TT1, TT2, real-time delayed, whatever it is. But in this industry, we know that having that face-to-face engagement and interaction with the consumer and the kind of relationships that you have with your customers, it's absolutely king. And it's key. It's key to very, very big successes in this industry. If you go and look at the conversion ratio, to only have a 34% acceptance ratio on a TT1 real time. And yes, sure, there's 120-second timeout on that thing. But at the end of the day, it says a lot in terms of relationships that people have with you. They come into your shops and they do those transactions with you in person for a specific reason.
And yeah, and they trust you. So that's awesome. We touched a bit about disputes earlier on the old NATO. So again, apologies. I'm just referring back to past, present, and future. So within DebiCheck, we are really, really proud to say that our dispute ratio, it's less than 1%. So if you think about authentications on the old NATO side, I mean, that just stood out. So yeah, disputes gone down, DebiCheck, it's working, authentications, it's taking place, and DOA or rogue users are being eliminated and terminated from the system. Okay, so where to now? Okay, so I think this is where we are at present and future, where we are going. So we did touch a bit about switching, multi-acquiring. So right now, I'm proud to say, we are very proud to say that we've got 4 acquiring banks, creditor banks, that NewPay could actually process transactions through on DebiCheck. Okay, so if you think about it, how does it happen and when does it happen and why is it happening? I think the bottom line is we understand what's going out in the market. We have seen the impact of load shedding. We have seen the impact where systems malfunction, stuff goes pear-shaped, okay? So for us, I mean, the biggest thing is we need to make sure that our merchants are online 24/7, having the ability to upload, process transactions when the consumers have got the need and they're in your shops. I mean, they're there for a reason. So, you know what, like we've got relationships with our merchants. You also have got a specific relationship with the consumer there. I mean, we call it a big happy family. So, yeah. Okay, having a look at cost. I mean, a lot of people would say, so what is this going to cost me? I mean,
a lot of money, Stefan. I think there's 4 banks we have to charge 4 times the amount. You know, maybe that's just the right approach on this thing. So can I go back a step, if I may? You know, so we also want to know why. You know, why did we actually come up with this whole idea? Why did we say that we want to do multi-acquiring? And why did we actually go and build this platform for you guys? So if you think back to the early days of DebiCheck, and we're going back specifically here to August of 2021, terrible month in our lives, terrible month in your lives as well, if you were with us at that specific time. So it's just over 2 years ago that incident happened, but the bank physically went down. Transactions were not presented on time. Reporting was delayed to come up. You could not upload more transactions, etc. So a lot of things were going on at this time. We were working with all of the banks to fine-tune systems. There was a lot of settings that had to take place to ensure that things were just streamlined and working very, very, very smoothly. You know, the ADO system took 6 years to actually mature, to get to a stage where you had a good cheddar cheese, if I can put it in those terms. Whereas DebiCheck's now been running for almost 3 years. We're going into 3rd year now. So we have to give these things time, and as technology gets better, these things also get better. And we have gotten better. The banks have gotten better. Everyone's gotten better over time to actually run these systems and so forth. But we are not blind to the fact that we did have a serious issue with one bank that went down, our primary bank at the time, and they suffered a serious technical challenge at the time. Now, no one is immune to these kinds of things, and they've implemented a host of things to actually ensure that they have maximum uptime. Because, folks, let's be honest, if they are not processing transactions, they are also not making money out of this thing. So it's not like they're getting up in the morning and saying, how can we sabotage the system? How can we kill these guys? You know, and how can we cut them out? It's not the case at all. So very, very important for us was just to say, bearing all of that in mind, we wanted to ensure that you guys can always, but always transact and process. To do that, you need to be able to upload a transaction, first and foremost. Second of all, you need to be able to report on a transaction. You need to be able to maintain a transaction, so do the transaction maintenance and so forth. And then obviously we need to know that the transactions that actually process at the various banks and so forth. And that was one of the key reasons why we drove this specific angle to go and say, how many banks are we going to onboard? We said, well, we're going to onboard all of them, then let's onboard all of them. But we've taken the route of going with 4 banks.
4, that's correct.
And that is the amount of channels that we've got available right now.
Thanks, Warner. So yeah, I'm just going to maybe move on to the next slide, the point on agenda. Maybe just to give you an idea of the actual process flow. So again, I'm just going to take a step back where a consumer comes to your shop or your branch, and he's there because he's got a specific need. Okay. At that specific stage, let's call it step 2. You've gone through the contract and the approval, and now you need to upload the actual agreement to say that, Stefan, ek soek R1,000 and I'm approving the $1,000 on the 25th to be debit on my account. Okay, now we realize that, oops, the transaction or the mandate, it's not going through. Okay, so then we, as NewPay, will be notified by our primary bank number 1 or 2 in this scenario, as an example, that there might be an issue, and the ETA for this specific issue to be resolved could potentially be 5 minutes, or let's call it in an hour. Okay, now we, Vaughan and seniors, we would say, okay, so the impact, what's the impact? Is there a requirement to do the switch, flip the switch, or do not? No, we don't. It'll be resolved now. It's maybe just some signal issue or not. Okay, but when we make the call, then you'll basically retry the transaction, the mandate, you'll upload the mandate, the actual consumer would then basically accept the mandate, and then that would complete the actual process. Now, Vonnie, maybe I think this would be a question that people would ask us, like, how do they notify, or how do we notify them of the switch? Do we need to communicate with them when we are switching, or like the worst case scenario, when are we flipping the switch?
It's a difficult one that to handle, because if we had to go back to market every single time and tell you guys, listen, we are flipping a switch, we are moving over to option B, option C, whatever it is, how long would that take us? You saw the 11,500 sites where we've got a DebiCheck system. With all of those volumes of businesses sitting out there, it's very difficult to get to everyone, especially because, unfortunately, people don't always read their mails and their communications. We've got a Telegram channel where we say, we're going to send you comms. We don't get people to subscribe to the Telegram channel. So
please subscribe, speak to your account manager. Please subscribe to our Telegram communication channel. We do share some valuable information there when there might be good news and bad news as well.
100%. So that's the channel we use to update people. It's a free app, people. It's a free app that you can download onto your phone. The reason why we've chosen that and not WhatsApp is because of volume. It can handle a lot more participants. WhatsApp is limited in the count of people that you can actually add onto that chat and discussion group and forum. So yeah, a lot better to actually do it that way. So I see some questions are coming in, and I've posted the first question. Thank you, folks. And we'll continue to post the questions as we go through the run of it, but we will leave it until the end.
Okay, thanks. Excuse me. So for the people that I'm not quite sure, we were privileged enough, if I can call it that, where we've already had the opportunity to try and test our switching process. So the last time, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 8th of July. I think the Australians actually played against the South Africans on Loftus Persveld that Saturday. And we did a switch during that Saturday morning where we were notified that there's some system issues and challenges. And we made the call. And I'll be honest with you, the Monday morning, my phone was actually quiet. Nobody asked me about any downtime. Was there any issues or system challenges? But people, I'm going to show you now, if we move on, specifically the 8th of the 7th, where I can show you that we did a switch and how you would be able to identify this on your actual mandate reporting and transactional reporting.
So, Stefan, just before you do, just as a matter of interest, so the first time we did a switch to just test the system to make sure that everything runs well, and that it happens seamlessly, was in April of this year. I think it was the 17th, if I'm not mistaken. 17th of April. So there was a glitch, there was a bit of a shake-up, and then we did a switch over to move all of the clients over to the secondary bank to do processing on that leg. The next leg was in July, exactly as Stefan says. He's going to show you some reporting and how to identify stuff, and that negligible negative point that he was talking about, I don't think it's relevant, because at the end of the day, you'll get your money. We'll make sure of that. But the point is, and more importantly, and this is maybe just some info for you as well. We did a switch over last week as well, and no one knew about it. Not even the people in the business knew about it. That's how seamless this thing goes, guys. We are literally able to switch over between banks in a matter of about 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and we switch every single transaction, every terminal, every TT1, every TT2 over to a new bank, and we process seamlessly. You don't even know about it. And then we switch back just as seamlessly and easily as well.
That's awesome news. Okay, so for the folks that's familiar with our website reporting, I mean, you sure there's a mandate report, and the mandate report basically shows you what mandates are active or inactive. Now, on this mandate report, there's the section that stipulates authorized mandates. So these are mandates that were accepted and confirmed by your consumers. Now, if you look at the authorized mandate, the top little snippet, on the right-hand side, it displays on my right-hand side, so I think it'll display on your right-hand side as well. You'll see a highlighted creditor bank. Now, what you would definitely see there, Nedbank, and then just on the bottom, you'll see Absa. Okay, so if you have a look at the date loaded, so that was the 8th of the 7th, where I just said that we experienced some downtime, and we made the call to say, listen, guys, there's an issue. Let's get our people, it's a Saturday, let's get the people up and running ASAP. So in this scenario, we uploaded transactions on Nedbank as our priority bank number 1, and then we had to switch to a different bank because of a system issue. Okay, so that's just on the authorized mandates, how to identify. If you want to go and have a look maybe for the 8th of the 7th on your own mandate reporting to double check and see, are we speaking the truth? Can you see it? Please log on, go to your authorized mandates and put in the date and select all fields, and then you'll see
in critical that select all fields. You have to select all fields, yes.
Okay, so great. You've uploaded a mandate, it's been authorized. Now it comes to the real serious business where did the transactions process successfully against the consumer's bank account? So the second little snippet on the bottom. Once again, you'll see this is the transaction report where it stipulates the successful transactions. And you can see once again, next to the debtor bank, there's the creditor bank, and I did it in vice versa now. So now I sorted it according to Absa and Nedbank, just for the joke of it, so you guys can just see. But yeah, here you can see, people, it's visible, you can see it, it's live, it's working. So mandates, it's uploaded, transactions, they're getting processed. Okay, so please, if you're not familiar with the transaction report or mandate report, the account managers that's coming to your shop, that services your branches, please take the time, maybe let them sit down with your staff, managers, regionals, and maybe just go through a quick little training session with them so that you can just familiarize yourself with it as well. Okay. Whoops. What's going on there? Apologies. Okay, so this for me, I think it's a positive, but I think a lot of people will see it as a negative. So I'm actually a bit confused, but for me, it's a big positive because once a transaction gets processed, the money still needs to be settled to a nominated bank account. Okay, so most of our merchants, you are banking with bank number A as an example, and you've got a billing and settlement account. So NewPay, Vorna, if I'm not mistaken, we will always settle to the nominated account that's on our systems, and we will not settle to different accounts that's stipulated. Okay. So I'm maybe just going to use an example. Let's say your banking, your billing settlement account, it's on Nedbank, and we've processed through Nedbank. Then those transactions, as it's currently early morning, successful, we do the settlement. Let's say we had a scenario where we did the actual switch, the flip of the switch, and we had to switch to bank number 2, priority bank number 2, and that bank, it's Absa. Okay, but your settlement account merchants are still with Nedbank. Then think about it. It's normal banking rules. When you do a transfer from your account to your wife's account or your husband's account, and they are not with the same bank, then there's obviously a delay in the settlement. Okay, so for me, this is the only negative aspect right now. When we do the switch, when the transactions were successful, those transactions that got successfully processed will be settled the following day. Normal banking rules. Okay. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if you may be working on something specifically to see if we can enhance this.
Yeah, we are indeed. So, you know, to just put it into easy terms, at this stage, in any one given month, we process and settle close on 3 billion rand. If you look at all of the platforms and all of the channels altogether. So to have an overdraft facility of that size is immense. So it's quite tough. But we are working on it. We actually want to achieve that. We want to get to a position where we can move over to a secondary bank, process the transactions, but keep on settling from our normal bank account and not settle from that account. So what I mean by that is if we had to switch over to secondary bank being Capitec, and we are now processing those transactions from Capitec. Capitec will pass the funds to us, and we then pass it on to you. But that would go out of our Capitec account. So if you don't bank with Capitec and your normal processing bank is Nedbank, which is the norm, then you would normally have to wait 1 day for your interbank settlement to happen. So the big drive from our side is to get a facility in place whereby we can ensure that we will always settle you from our Nedbank account into whichever account you've got with us. So if you are currently set up in the primary bank with Nedbank and you have a Nedbank account, the money will reflect in your account immediately. Sure, there are functionalities available. So if you do bank with FNB and Absa and so forth, and you want to keep those relationships, that's fine. There's not a problem. And you can opt to have real-time settlement. You all know about real-time clearing that is available in the system. So you can opt in for that. There is a nominal fee for that. It's less than what you pay on your internet banking typically to do it yourself. But there is a small fee for that. And then we can do that real-time payment out into your other bank. That is Nedbank to wherever you bank. However, if we get the money into our Capitec account, and we now need to pay it over to your whichever account and so forth, the normal interbank settlement rule does apply, which means some banks could take up to 2 business days, mostly just 1 business day. But we are pushing and driving to get that changed so that we will always be doing all of our settlements out of the Nedbank account and always be able to do real-time clearance for you.
Sure. Yeah, that's massive, people. So if you just think about doing the switch, the impact, having a bank account, transactions being switched, it's been successful, and money's being settled, yeah, it's awesome news. But yeah, the future, you know.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, folks. We only need about 3 billion.
That's not a lot. Okay, so I think at this point in time, I think everybody understands more or less where we are heading to and what's in place right now. Then for me, I think the next question is like, geez, what do I need to do to actually be opted in for this specific awesome switching multi-acquiring setup? Now, please, people, don't stress. We've got you covered. It's not an external, it's an internal function. So we basically do the entire setup from our internal side, where we would basically list the actual priority banks with the abbreviated short names, and we're taking the stress out of your hands. So the little slideshow, this is Stefan DebiCheck. So a lot of the people that do know me, they know me as Stiffy. So yeah, this is my test site. And I'd just like to show you where we are speaking about the acquiring banks. So in this little snippet, you'll see Nedbank, Absa, Capitec. But yeah, like we mentioned, we've got 4 acquiring banks. The 4th one, I think everybody has heard about it. It's the NewPay Direct. Unfortunately, I'm not set up on this one. But yeah, as you can see, there's my DebiCheck merchant number. I've got my Nedbank, my Absa, my Capitec as my priority banks. And then the little snippet on the right-hand side. That's basically how that specific priority bank, my abbreviated short name, will be displayed on the consumer's bank statement once the transactions were debited successfully. Now you'll see my priority bank number 2 and 3 in this scenario. It's set up as NP NewPay. So please, people, we've been testing this since I'm not quite sure how long back, but yeah, it's in the past where we did this initial testing and set up for this. Now, any new applications, any new sign-ons, we as NewPay, we take it and we register the abbreviated short names through all 4 acquiring banks. And they all have the same abbreviated short name being displayed on the consumer's bank statement.
That is obviously initially when we do this whole service, right? So if you sign up with us, you will go into the normal, probably a Nedbank channel, and say to us you want to process through Nedbank. We set up your abbreviated short name, being Stefan Cash Loans in this example. That is set up with the bank. That is then also sent to the other banks. However, there's a rule in the payment system which states that you're only allowed to have an abbreviated short name with a bank active for a period of 6 months without activity on that specific abbreviated name. So if we want to move transactions over to Capitec or to our NewPay Direct channel, which we pump transactions directly into bank server through to the data banks, or Capitec, or wherever we go, then we have to process transactions once at least in every 6-month cycle to maintain your code live and active and so forth. And that is why you'll see that a lot of the transactions that we've processed in the past, when we have had to switch over, defaults back to an abbreviated short name of NP NewPay. So it is a bit of a pain because the customer does see NP NewPay. It does not see Stefan Cash Loans processing transactions against his name. However, we are processing the transaction and it is still a non-reversible. Does it happen that our call center gets flooded by consumer calls saying, who's debiting my account? Yes, it does. And that is something that we have to live with and that we deal with. On any one day, we can get up to 1,000, 1,200 calls coming into the call center just to handle those types of calls, to find out exactly what's going on.
Thanks, Warner. Apologies, people. I was not aware of the 6-month rule, but now I am. So yeah, we'll communicate that during our site visits as well. Okay, so I'm not quite sure how's the actual questions looking, if there's anything specifically, but so I'm going to move on. If
there are 1 or 2 questions, I don't know, do you want to handle it now? Do you want me to move on first? Do you want to move on first?
You know what? Let's move on and then we'll stick to the agenda.
Super.
Okay, so people, I think in essence, the message that we are trying to display today or communicate today is that where we've been, the past, the present, and the future, it's positive. Okay, so I know there's a lot of negativity and people always complaining about load shedding and it's not raining and all that kind of stuff and fees and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the big benefit is, again, we identified the need to be online 24/7. Let's face it, normal working hours in the environment has changed, not because we just felt like it had to change. It's because there's external factors. I mean, people are making plans to have a power solution. People are making plans to going out on the road to their consumers, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, being online. 24/7. The risk mitigation, taking the risk of not being able to upload and process transactions, having that ability to upload and process transactions. I mean, flexibility. I don't do yoga, but yeah, it wasn't just built in a day, people. So please, we will enhance. We are innovative. We are looking at ideas. And it's a specialized service. I don't think there's a lot of service providers that, I don't want to call it bragging rights, but maybe just information sharing where we can share this sort of information with you. And we love sharing it because it's good news, and people don't always speak about good news. Okay, so yeah, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I missed something there.
No, not at all. I think you've covered it all very well. Thanks, Stefan. Maybe I can just tie in with one or two of your statements and so forth. First of all, the load shedding scenario that we've got in the country at the moment. Stefan mentioned that we try and be innovative. If you go and look at the solutions that we've put out into market, we've gone and sourced a device which we can give to you guys, and we allow you to pay it off over 12 months. And we give you this device so that we can keep your businesses active and live and so forth. So speak to your consultants. That device we brought in on the back of obviously all of the load shedding and everything that's happening. And guys, it's just getting worse. This country is not getting better in terms of load shedding, unfortunately. So it is very small. It's compact. It's lightweight. I can carry it around with one unit. But you can power quite a few devices on this thing. We plugged it into the office here. We plugged in a multifunctional big copier, printer scanner thing. We ran all of our job sheets for a whole day on that thing. We ran computers, terminals, everything on it. It lasted for 4 hours. We took a 4-hour cycle and we said, where's our stab now? And we were sitting at 62% power remaining on the item. So it's fantastic. What's also great is it's mobile. So you can take it home. You can plug it in there and continue watching the raga.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, so definitely there are other solutions and things available. We have 1 or 2 questions. Maybe we can just ask Ray to just read those out. So we've got a team behind us here, guys. We don't do this all on our own, right? So we've got a whole production house that's driving us here.
It feels like
level, Ray. So thanks you guys also for your support and everything here. But maybe Ray can take us through the first question that we've got on the screen.
Perfect. The first question is, thanks, Vaughan and team. Yes, the disputes are low, but we have noticed bank cross-migration. We have identified quite a lot of customers now starting to switch to a different bank in order to avoid payments. Your NPS debit order still acquires via the same bank. Is the plan to move the entire platform?
Sure. Okay, so there's more than one question there, but let's dive straight into it quickly. So, in terms of the disputes that have been moved cross-bank and so forth, also speak to our consultants and have a look yourself also on the NewPay website. There's a service which is called Strike Date Analysis. When you log on to Strike Date Analysis, you can actually, we're doing an analysis there of where and how consumers are processing transactions, when they are getting successes coming in, when the failures are coming in, are they disputing transactions? So then you know if he's a serial disputer or even a suspender. Maybe suspender sounds a bit funny, but so is he in suspense all the time? Is he a serial suspender? Or what is he doing with that specific scenario? So as a part of that component, we also give you the specific bank account against which transactions are being run. So you can see bank account numbers being listed there for you. Obviously, there is a consent that you need to do with your consumer before you do it. What we do not show you is who, with whom, where, and so forth. We don't give you exact dates. What we will say is the 1st of the month, the 2nd or 3rd or 4th, or whatever the day is of the month in which successful. But I'm not going to tell you on the 23rd of August 2023 this happened. And I'm not going to tell you it was at Stefan Cash Loans or whatever it was. Simple reason for that is we're not a credit bureau, guys.
Yeah.
So we can't do that. We are just giving you the information. You look at where the successes were, what account number was being debited, etc.
And we highlight where we've got the biggest success on the specific day as well. So if you open up the Strike Date Analysis report, you put in the consumer's details, then immediately you'll see green on the 25th. So you know the 25th, that's when I'm getting successes on. Okay.
Then just the last part of that question was the MPS EFT debit order still acquiring by the same bank. So again, we do have the MPS EFT debit orders available from the other banks as well. So you can choose and opt where you want to go. If you wanted to move that over to Nedbank as opposed to the original Absa Bank where it was, that's entirely your choice. You're welcome to do so. So we can process those transactions over to another site, and we can do it for you on another platform as well.
I think maybe on that question, and I'm just hearing somebody buzzing in my ear, I think maybe the question could also be, so isn't there maybe tracking on those transactions if we switch them? Unfortunately, the same rules apply. There's no different rules on the, well, MPS platform, if I can call it like that. It's the same rules across the board. So yeah, there's no additional tracking.
I love the next question that's going to come for us now. Please, Ray, go ahead.
Okay, and Kosanati says, hello.
Hello.
How do we solve the issue of a scenario where a client's salary date falls on a holiday, but the client gets paid earlier and we deduct on the earlier dates, but has now fallen off our DebiCheck mandates dates, and the client is thereafter able to dispute that transaction?
Watch this space, 23rd of October, 2023.
Yeah, so that's the big date that we're all waiting for and so forth, and no, it's not another Springbok test, okay? Although we wish it was, but what's actually happening on this day, guys, you know that we've been fighting in this industry for a lot of things for a long time, right? In ADO, we had stuff like up to 32 days of tracking. We had all sorts of nice value adds that could have been added onto the system. In the DebiCheck system, we don't have 32 days of tracking. We've only got 10. However, one big thing that we had in ADO that we've been fighting for quite some time is the ability to have the weekend minus one date adjustment rule. So that is where a transaction automatically gets moved back to the prior business day where it was processing. So that functionality has finally been approved. The instruction was passed through to all of the banks, and it will be deployed live by all banks in system under instruction on the 23rd of this month, guys. So TikTok, the clock is waiting, and we are basically there. Cool. Yeah, so is there anything else that you want to maybe just have a look at there for us, right?
Yes, there is a question from Savas. This person is asking, the new dispute is client suspending transactions before a payday.
Yeah, you're quite right, Sarah. So, so we also regard that as a new dispute platform and so forth. I stand to be corrected, but I think the stat around that is in the region of about 1.3%. So 1.3% of transactions go into a suspended state before they actually process against the account. The interesting thing is that you could actually do this inside of the ADO platform as well, but it wasn't communicated. It wasn't informed out to the public.
And I think the common naming back then in the ADO platform was a code for payment stop by account holder.
Future date stop, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now, stats, I think industry, well, the suspensions before actual debit date, I think it's roughly about 11%. And I can confirm that NewPay, it's sitting 1.6%. So comparing to industry, we're definitely far lower than what industry has seen and experienced.
Yeah. So, and I think just going back to that strike date analysis, SDA report that we spoke about, guys, if you go onto that thing, you will actually note that you can see who typically suspends transactions. So the serial suspenders, that's where you will identify. Don't lend to them.
Consumer behavior.
Do not lend to guys that suspend you all the time. Yeah. So obviously, if you have further questions and things, you can post that through to your account managers, and these guys will help you in the area and so forth. The reason why I'm making that statement is because we are starting to run out of time. We've got one more video clip to show you. It's a little bit of detailed information around this specific platform, the multi-acquiring platform. Jeffrey, I do see your hand raised. Unfortunately, this platform does not allow for that. So you would actually have to type a question for us in the Q&A section, which we can then see, and then we can post it. Alternatively, if you have our numbers, you're welcome to contact us. And then we're very, very happy to engage with you and talk to you about all of these points. But yes, guys, strike that analysis. Do not underestimate that report. You can get a lot of information out of that. To keep your lights on, we've brought you our power backup solution inverters. Those things are absolutely fantastic. You know, we brought in a few of those things and we thought, let's just try 100 and see where it goes. We sold at 100 in 2 weeks. So it is really, it's running like a rocket ship, and those things are fantastic. They really, really, really work well. But yes, so we can probably move over to more questions. Is there another question?
Yes, there is one more question.
Okay.
They ask, Peter is asking, can we split acquiring banks? For example, a 60-40% split, or get all Nedbank clients with Nedbank and the rest of the banks with Capitec?
So from my perspective, and I'm just going to answer it straightforward. So please excuse me if you think I'm being rude, but you know what? We also need to be aware of legislation, rules within the industry. I mean, if you think about, let's just swipe Bank A on Bank A and Bank B on Bank B. That's basically source on source. And yeah, there could be massive implications if that happens. So
I didn't even think about that angle, Stefan. That's very true.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Apologies, Peter, if my answer is not 100%.
No, but it's a very valid answer. And I didn't even think about that. But Peter, you know, a different answer on that is, you know, in IT, I always say to the dev guys here, you know, in IT, anything is possible. The only limitation is the size of your wallet. But the problem is exactly this. There's a sorted source issue. So there's a legislative problem around it and so forth. And then which transactions would you want us to process with which one? It would be very difficult to actually figure that out. But I think the sorted source is actually going to park that whole conversation for us. And that's just going to say it's not going to happen. I do have to say, however, that in terms of new card, you can do a split. So you can say to us, pay out 60% of my funds collected into my new card platform so that I can fund automatically, because then we can clear it for you faster and we can get it in there. And 40% you get back into your account in cash. So that's just a different option that there is as well. Okay. It seems like we might have one more question that came up quickly. Let's publish that and then Ray can just read that out to us.
Perfect. The last question is, we received information from a PASA representative that NPS and RMS will fall away eventually, or RMS will behave just like NPS. Is there any updates on industry plans around enhancements of DC, and will there be another webinar?
The webinar, I think we should have.
We will definitely have more webinars.
If you like. Next topic, please.
So in terms of RMS falling away, so I don't think that it will fall away, but there is a lot of push at the moment from Reserve Bank side to move it completely out of the DebiCheck stream and onto its own rails. It will move later in the afternoon, so it will process similar to an NPS type of a transaction. And then the eventual aim behind that is, yes, they do want to replace EFT debits against it out of the platform. And simply because EFT debits don't process against available funds in your account, they process negatively, right? So we actually get a report on day one that you upload the transaction to say everything was successful, and then they start reversing those transactions over the next 5 to 10 days. And that's why there's also sometimes a delay in getting those settlements through. So definitely there is a move to push everything over to a different platform. Is it going to happen soon? No. We really don't believe that that's going to happen soon. The RMS move to a different window, that will be first. When exactly? There's no hard concrete date for us that's set at the moment to say this is when it must be done. And if we think about it, guys, you know, DebiCheck had to be done and finished and finalized for the first time probably 3 years before it actually went live. So unfortunately, these things do take time. And when you want to phase out stuff, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
You know that checks have been phased out, right?
Check, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
checkbook. Who knows of a checkbook? We asked our head of IT the other day, does he have a checkbook? He said, no, he's heard of these things. He's never seen one before.
how do you fill it in?
Yeah, quite interesting.
Okay, Vorna, VH, I think I'm going to move on to the actual video. And then, yeah, once again, people, family, friends, colleagues, thanks for joining today. And yeah, please feel free to share your webinar experience with your account manager. And if you would like any other specific webinars to be hosted, please do share.
And we'll also post this onto YouTube. So if you want to refer it to other people, then you're welcome to do so. And everyone can go and look at it and so forth. I think what's vitally important also, just as a last mention, please keep your ideas coming to our account managers, to our people, to our team, to us directly, wherever you want to, because it's through your innovation and your thoughts and feelings that we actually grow the system. So hats off and thank you to you also for all of your innovative ideas. Please keep them flowing and coming. And to answer the previous question around the webinar, another one, give us ideas for topics. We welcome that feedback. We'd love to engage with you guys. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Thank you very much.
Well, from Altron's perspective, partnering with a multi-acquiring bank allows you redundancy in your collections. So if you can imagine the importance of being able to register your DebiCheck mandates. If you're unable to do so, you won't be able to collect. So with us, our customers are able to enjoy that redundancy that competitors aren't able to offer. That gives us a unique selling point or a unique selling advantage in the market, and our customers absolutely love it. So from a customer perspective, there's even more benefits to multi-bank acquiring. So if you can imagine a scenario where a microlender, for example, wants to issue a loan to a customer, and for that loan to be able to be granted, they need to be able to have a DebiCheck authenticated. And at that given moment, they're unable to register that DebiCheck mandate. They can't issue that loan to that customer. That customer would then go to another service provider because the need for that loan is urgent. So having this redundant solution will enable that merchant or that microlender to still be able to issue that loan, still be able to register that DebiCheck mandate. And that's just in your microfinance space. If you look at retail environments too, if you look at medical practices, wherever there needs to be a DebiCheck loaded or mandate registered, it needs to be done on the spot, and the customer needs to authenticate that as soon as possible. Otherwise, the sale can be lost.
So for multi-acquiring banking, there's two specific purposes behind actually delivering it, right? So the first and the most important one is redundancy. A business lives and dies based on its mandate initiation, and this is because the mandate initiation is a direct result of a loan being issued. So if the loan is being issued and there's no way to actually set up a mandate for collection in the future, it simply won't be issued. These businesses run on their loans and the ability to issue these mandates, and if the bank, i.e. upstream, is down, specifically the bank that you're acquiring with, you're kind of dead in the water. So to kind of mitigate that, we came up with multi-bank acquiring. We have multiple banks that we allow you to acquire through, not just two. That's the first point. The second point is ours is a redundancy failover. So your terminals, your website, your merchant numbers, all of those things that you use today, your entire access through us remains the same regardless of which bank you're on. So when there is an issue with the bank being down, we realize that this bank is down within the first 3 to 4 minutes, and then we flip the switch on our side to move from one acquiring bank to the other without you having any issues on your end. You simply then carry on business as usual until the bank comes back up, and then we seamlessly switch you back to your originating bank so that you're back to your primary bank, which means seamless business continuity.
So when it's a very busy, big payday and your office and business is sitting full of customers and these guys are trying to get credit from you, having a second or a backup multi-bank acquiring system available to you is absolutely essential. Think about it this way. If you walk into Checkers or Pick n Pay and you want to buy something, and that speed point is offline, and you've uploaded your entire trolley, you're ready, you've done all of the paperwork, you've done all of the work, you're standing at the cashier and you want to cash out. Now you can't pay for this stuff. You will leave there fuming and you will run into the next shop, Spar, whatever it is, to go and buy your goods. The same thing happens here. The consumer will leave the business and they go into the next shop to go and make their purchase or get credit from someone else. That's why this is critical and essential for you to have. So when the primary bank is offline and you cannot transact to anything, then NuPay has the ability to switch over to a secondary or even a third bank, even a fourth bank if we really wanted to get you up and running and processing within 5 minutes. So whether you are processing in a credit environment, whether you are processing in a healthcare environment, whether you're a retailer, whether you are a leasing agent or an insurance company that processes transactions over a very long term or even a short term for that matter, you want to have the satisfaction and know that your transactions will always be processed, and you want to be settled for those funds very easily and very quickly. You want to identify who processed them, where they were processed, because when you have interbank settlements taking place from one bank to another bank, at times there's a delay, up to 2 business days. So if your primary bank is normally Nedbank, through which we acquire for you, and you move over to your second or third bank, so NuPay direct into the banking stream or via the Capitec stream that we do, then that transfer over of funds into your Nedbank bank account, if that is where you bank, could take up to 2 business days to clear into the funds into your account. We have made columns available whereby you can see which creditor bank actually processed the transaction, when it was processed to your account, and then you can account for the reconciliation of that on your accounting side.
So in summary, we're very excited about multi-bank acquiring. We really think this offers the kind of redundancy that our customers need and deserve. This will make their customer experience with their clients a lot better as well. And we're happy to be first to market, and we're happy to be able to offer this now.
So at Altron FinTech, we give you the option of 4 different processing banks that you can run through. That ensures that you never go offline, that you are always able to process, and that your business is geared for the future and geared for success, and you can always get your collections.